Evening. It's now 20 to 6 here where we are in the South Coast. And even though I'm not physically in the room with Kate, I can feel those embers and the warmth of those fire. And when Kate and I had a chat about what we want to achieve with these particular connection is that often we find we're sending out a lot of information, posts, articles, newsletters, but there's that missing piece of the connection. And a lot of things that we're doing behind the scenes will rectify some of that. We're hoping that in time will open up the doors to some live events and further things that we can connect with our community. And we're both of us are incredibly looking forward to that because we know how important connection is. But we thought in the meantime, we could also just pop on here once a month and just explore a topic with everybody. And hopefully that will give you the opportunity to, through the chat, give us questions or become part of the discussion. And that's why we called it Fireside Chat. We know that in our part of the world, occasionally the fire is not going to be appropriate, but we feel like we're leading into months that it will. And we'll just get very creative when it comes to the warmer times. So that's what the intention is today, is the first of many of our Fireside Chats. Is there anything you'd like to add, Kate?
I certainly would, and I'm very excited that we've decided to call it Fireside Chat. And the reason that I'm so excited is because for me, fire has been a big part of my life. I'm on the south coast of New South Wales, and as you know, the next village we lost 82 houses. Most of the bush around here was destroyed. It was a very, very tricky time. But after that fire came massive regeneration, and now we've had massive rains. And in the whole kind of scheme of wet, dry, hot, cold, seasonal change, etc., fire is a really, really important part. So traditionally speaking, around these parts, fire, when it was well managed, was always seen as a way to generate regrowth and to support the environment. And it was handled with love, care, and honor. So, this beautiful book that I am reading at the moment, Fire Country by Victor Stephenson. I'm trying to get it into the screen. It's really, really a beautiful, genuine book. And Victor's done a lot in this country, helping people understand what traditional burning looked like and what fire meant. But, fire was welcome because fires were as nuanced as the seasons were. And there was no way you could say, for example, on April the 13th, we're going to light a fire in such and such a place, because you had to wait till you tuned into the season. So it was a real honoring of people's understanding of and connection to everything that was going on. So once that fire had been through, little tiny shoots of growth would come through, and the kangaroos would all gather, and all the creatures would come by, and the birds would swoop down on the bugs that they could see could be eaten. It was a very, very beautiful thing. So for me, drawing a parallel to what we're doing here at SoulAdvisor, it's like the fire is about burning off the old, the unwanted, the unnecessary, the stuff that holds us back from being fully well, and to move instead into a beautiful, flourishing state. Yeah. So that's why I'm really excited about it being Fireside Chats. Yeah.
And I think also what you just said, I remember you saying to me when we went through the fires, because it was devastating. And you said one of the local elders said it means that the next season there'll be lots of rain. So, it's part of the cycle, isn't it? It's that sort of, and from an energy healer's perspective, fire is all about transforming and transmuting. And as you said, letting go of the old. But, with all those analogies, it's about renewal as well. So, all the elements have their role and their place. And I suppose for us, this Fireside Chat will allow us to maybe explore in a nice informal setting some of the concepts that we want to talk about, but allowing for people to, in part, I suppose, interact, and in that the transformation will come within ourselves and within our community as well.
Yeah.
So in light of that, we've chosen this month theme is honour. So just to explain to everybody, we've sat down and we went how best to bring all lots of communication, and we really connected with the moon cycles and the seasons, and then what word perhaps may encapsulate that, and for us then to, with under that umbrella, then to, in our different ways through social, newsletter, articles, blogs, and our fireside chat, how do we explore that? So when we're in that specific season, when we're meant to be naturally pondering and evolving around that particular energy, what can we actually do? And as you've mentioned, in the state of wellness in all its forms. So, we talk a lot about our physical health, our mental health, our emotional health, but also our spiritual health is so important, and our way that we, our connection in our community, our society health, and our planet. Do you know what I mean? It's all those things, because all those ends come together to create what we see is wellness. It's not just a sexy pose on a Instagram tile, or the latest fad, or in probiotic, or whatever that we see in our magazines. It's about, what does wellness mean for the health of the individual and of the community as a whole. So honor has been an interesting word for me when it came through, because honor can often be quite an ancient word, and often can be relegated to certain things like rituals and ceremonies and whatever. But when you really feel into the energy of honor, to me, it feels an energy of being present, and to see the divinity in someone else, and in doing so, the divinity in yourself, and to really respect what we sometimes, unfortunately, this crazy world that we live in, take for granted. The honoring of the food and the soil and the planet that we live in. So what are your views around our theme this month, Kate?
Well, I think, just as you say, to build on what you're saying, that it's honoring means that you understand the specialness of everything. And, in yoga, in my Japanese yoga, we say gasho. If I had two hands available, which I don't because I'm holding the phone with the other one, I would show you what gasho looks like. But I'd hold this hand up and I'd make a fist with my other hand, and encapsulate the fist with my hand, and then I'd bow. And that's gasho, which means a very similar thing to what other yogis do, putting two hands together in prayer and saying namaste.
Yes.
But gasho implies that you're giving gratitude for all that has enabled you to live. And that's an honoring of the food that we put in our mouth, an honoring of our family that gave us birth and has supported us through, an honoring of all the friends that have made life worth living, an honoring of the community at large that holds us, and of the planet, all the amazing parts of the planet that actually that we should give gratitude towards for allowing us to live. So that honoring is just a fundamental part of wellness for me. Wellness, as we have just talked about, doesn't happen in a void. You cannot be well as a single individual. You have to, you need to participate in a reciprocal relationship with family, community, country, planet, earth, and it gives you your wellness, and you give it its wellness. If wellness to you looks like a packet of spirulina, then thinking into all those beings, those spirulina beings that gave their life to allow you to eat them, that's honoring. Yeah.
It's interesting too today, Kate, and I was listening to a video, which often you do on a weekend. You start sort of flicking through and something catches your eye, and it was talking about, I suppose, his take on what the world is experiencing right now. And in a way, he called it was a metamorphosis, which we know is the process of the caterpillar going through to become the butterfly, and how in that metamorphosis period there's a letting go, and I suppose in some respects not knowing what the new would be. But it has to go through that process and needs to surrender. It needs to trust. It's part of the process for a new beginning where eventually it gets wings. And I suppose he used that as an example of what we're going through now, and some of the cases occurring is because we're not quite sure what's on the other side. But in listening to that, it really came back to me with our theme here of honouring, is that, you know, we always, when we're in that space, we want to know, well, what can we do? You know, and we'll all do different things, and we've all got different roles to play in what's actually happening with where we are today. So it's not right or wrong. There's no judgment or whatever. But from my perspective, I just saw that there's a role for us to play, is just to be the best version of who we are. And if we can all do that, then that in itself has that knock-on effect. Do you know what I mean? And so I suppose for me, that's where I also saw that honouring, because I think in honouring ourselves, we fill our cup. We then are able to actually bring our best version to the interactions that we have. And if we're not in a space of need or lack, then we're also more gracious and we're more appreciative of what you have. So do you have any views on that?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's totally true. And, you know, we, our body, our psyche, our being is the closest we come to nature. And so honoring ourselves is honoring nature as well. If we don't honor ourselves, if we're abusing ourselves, then it's a lack of honor for ourselves, but it's also a lack of honor for nature. And I think it's so important for us to understand that we have a fundamental part to play. Every single being, every single little worm, every single little dog, person, bird, tree has a place has a role to perform in this planet. And it becomes tricky when we've been told that we don't have a role, and then we stop honoring ourselves. But we've got to know that we do have a role, you know, and that's a game that's been played by humans against other humans to say that we don't have a role. You know, in its worst form, that looks like total dishonor, i.e. shooting somebody or killing somebody or whatever. But in its best, which is what we're talking about here in SoulAdvisor, it looks like understanding that everybody has a part to play, and knowing that the divinity exists within us and within them, and relating on that level, so that we keep reinforcing that in each other, rather than trying to belittle somebody, rather than dissing somebody, rather than, you know, committing an act of social or mental violence against them.
I'm going to switch it a bit, because I always like to have a bit of a joke. Can you tell me what the purpose of a leech is, Kate? Because seriously, every time I go out to the garden, and I know you're going to give me a purpose, but I don't believe you. I know you're going to say it's taking away my bad blood, but seriously.
I seriously am going to say that. Look, I saw your leg, Deb, from that leech pipe. It went on for weeks and weeks, and it was itchy and red and unhappy. But, you know, what happens? So if this is from Japanese yoga, by the way, this is what we've been taught to believe or accept, is that when you get bitten, and I have like about 40 tick bites on me right now from living on the South Coast, that those creatures, nothing ever happens to you, it happens for you. So again, that's an honoring of the process, right? And I know it's hard, but that leech bit you, and right on a point on your inner calf, didn't it? Just above your ankle bone. Well, that's the confluence of spleen, kidney, and liver meridians. And it's a really important point. It's about cleansing. So, you know, what happens is every time it starts to itch, you reach down and you go, oh, bloody leech. But it doesn't matter what you say, but you're stimulating that point.
Okay. It needed a lot of cleansing. But I've noticed now, I haven't been bitten for a while, but they are such an intricate, I'm not quite sure what they actually are, invertebrates or whatever, because they sort of stand up. It's like a little meerkat. And it stands up and it sniffs around or senses where the warmth is, and then it goes for it. Do you know what I mean? Like, seriously, it's the most incredible thing to sort of watch. But because I've got razor sharp looking out for my leeches. I've been watching how they operate. Like, not coming anywhere near me, you know.
Honoring that leech, honoring the leech, honoring the leech. And also there's a, you know, sometimes it's much harder to honor what happens than other times, correct? Like
Very,
sometimes.
very true. And I think that, you know, coming back to our theme of honoring, it's a sort of, it's the challenge, isn't it? That we do, that we honor all. And sometimes it's really hard. If
Yes.
someone's underneath your skin, or someone's doing something you don't believe is right, and, you know, there's some, you know, let's face it, there's some pretty evil things happening in our world, but then you've got to go back to, there's still that spark of divinity in every single person. So it's all, you know, we're all connected. We can't just carve off the bits that we don't want to have. And for me, that's leeches, you know. So
and I wish I could see the Facebook. I'd love to see the Facebook comments, but I'd love people particularly to focus on what do they find it really hard to honor in their lives. You know, because, you know, that whole Buddhist philosophy of love your enemies because they're teaching you something, because that's also true. So we've all got a role to play.
Yeah, and I've always subscribed to, you know, here is just but a learning, you know, for us. So if we didn't have things that we could still refine or to improve on, then, you know, obviously would need to be here. So there's no, again, there's no judgment that occasionally they do get underneath your skin, and there's things that you find very hard to accept. But it's just, you know, it'd be lovely to be in that place. I remember once, you know, being in a situation where I'd created an event and it was just pouring down with rain, and there was no people turning up, which, you know, with big events is just a major thing, because people are sitting there going, well, where are the people? And it's obvious the people aren't leaving their house because it's pouring down with rain. And a Buddhist a monk that was there, it was just it was this whole thing of just acceptance, you know. And I'm a big thing. I've even said, I think that said to you today, you know, did you get what underneath it, the why? And it's like, it just is, Deb. It just is. So you know, there's that constant thing for me of trying to work out, sometimes there's no reason or whatever, it just is. It's just acceptance.
Honoring the process. And
from Kate, was there anything, like, I know we've caught you now because you've only got one arm. There was a practice that you wanted to share today, but is that going to be quite difficult to do?
No, in fact, I'm going to do it just by asking those that are with us to close their eyes. I'm not going to move. So close your eyes, please, everyone, if you feel to. And I'd just like to honor the 4 directions and honor this beautiful country that we're in. And the way that I'd like to honor those 4 directions is by casting our mind as far north as we possibly can. And in your mind's eye, following the line of the land, the lie of the land. What's there? Is it hills or plains or mountains? Is it tropical? Is it subtropical? What does it feel like? See if you can spread your energies as far north as possible. And then I'm warranting that most of us are on the east coast of Australia, so cast your mind out east to that vast ocean. And for those of us who are in WA, cast your mind out to the desert, but cast your mind out east, where the sun comes from, way out to that horizon. And then cast your mind southwards to the cold, towards the South Pole, where things get chillier and chillier and emptier. And again, depending where you're standing, you might be crossing plains or lakes or rivers, or think into the bush, the rocks that you're traveling over. And then cast your mind westwards. Again, if you're on the east coast, that will take you into the drier part of this continent. Way out to where things get pretty flat. Noticing what you're traveling over. in your mind's eye. And then see if you can widen your perspective and hold all those 4 directions in your mind's eye, and yourself in the center of that, held by the earth below you, covered by the sky above you, feeling in to the deep flow of water across this land and out in the ocean that also flows through you. And really honoring that you've been given time on this planet now to live to your fullest. Really honoring all of this country that's holding you here. And really honoring the lineage of humanity, the elders that have looked after the skies, the waterways, and the earth. And noticing how humble that makes you feel and how thankful that makes you feel. Those are the essences of honor, the humility and the thankfulness. And in that, our intention to do our very, very best in order to honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. What a beautiful way to round up our first Fireside Chat. So it's now 6 o'clock on a Saturday evening. I want to thank everyone that joined us both for the first and the second take for today. Our intention is to come in here at least once a month to do our Fireside Chats with you. So hopefully you'll be able to join us again. Please give us some comments if there's particular days or times that work. But, obviously a Saturday evening was chosen for today and seems to have worked for both Kate and myself. So let's see what we can actually do in regards to that. There's probably, for me, I just, in wrapping up, I suppose, is for anyone that's actually listening here, is that for the next month, we will be focusing on the energy of honor. And I know that it's up to everybody as to what they feel comfortable to do. But a simple practice could be, as we create a lot of these articles and posts and questions and things, is just to integrate that into your own meditation or practice or journaling or anything that feels comfortable for you. And we'd love to hear from you, be it on our Facebook practitioner page or our consumer-facing Facebook page with any of our posts. We'd love some interaction. I'd love to hear from you. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky when you're putting things out and you don't get that response. So it'd be lovely to hear from everyone that's here as to what's landing and what things you might be doing. We also will have a gathering. We're going to be doing an Illuminate gathering on the 13th of April. There'll be 2 events, and I'll get Kate to explain a little bit more about that, because we're pretty blessed to have Kate and some gorgeous Japanese yoga practitioners. They're going to be running both a panel discussion and also practice. So, but Kate, did you want to touch on that with a little bit of detail?
Absolutely. I guess honoring is one of the really fundamental principles of Japanese culture. So when all of us trained as Japanese yoga teachers, and there's about 6, 7, 8 Japanese yoga teachers in our SoulAdvisor community, then that principle was really, really honed, I guess, in our practice. So at lunchtime, 12:30, for 45 minutes, we're going to have as many of our Japanese yoga community as we can come in and have a little bit of a chat about what honor means for them. So I guess it's similar to what we've done today, Deb, but from a very Japanese yoga perspective. And there'll be little tips about how you might proceed with bringing honor into your own lives. And then in the afternoon, at 5 p.m. till 6 p.m, we're going to be running a Japanese yoga practice. So we'll all contribute to that, and we'll take people through asana or poses, as well as breathing practices, as well as give lifestyle tips around incorporating honor. So that will be on Wednesday, the 13th of April. And you'll see that come up both in the SoulAdvisor, where we are now on the Facebook, or, and Deb, I think maybe you should just tell people how they might join our newsletter if they haven't already.
Definitely. So that's the third thing. So first one is that we've got our posts, and as I said, please interact with us. We'll have our beautiful gathering, both the two events. So I want to thank Kate and all our Japanese yoga practitioners that are going to be hosting that this month on the 13th of April. And there will be a $10 donation going towards us actually building a research article document that perhaps we'll host on the SoulAdvisor Foundation that acknowledges yoga and the benefits of yoga for people in their wellness journey. And the third thing is, because I'm very mindful this is going into our practitioner community right now, but we'll be putting it onto our YouTube channel as well. So for anyone that's listening to this that perhaps isn't part of our community at this point, then we'd love for you to subscribe to our newsletter, where we can actually give you updates, newsletters, information, tips and tricks, and also things that are upcoming that you might want to connect with our community. So lots of ways for you to connect with us. And the last thing I suppose we want to ask is this will be going on YouTube, and there's a subscribe button down here or up there. I'm not quite sure where it is, but please subscribe to us. We're trying to build our YouTube channel up so we can get more informative how-tos and different types of content out to our community, and a lot of our practitioners will be part of that. So we'd love to have that support as well. So many things that we can give to you in regards to this month of honour. Please choose which honours you as to how you would like to participate, but lots on offer. So we hope you take up on the invitation to join us this month.
And thank you. I honour all of you who came to listen, and all of you who will listen now that we're posting this. And I honour you too, Deb. Thank you.
So it's like this, is it?
Yes, gasho. All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining us.